Vigilante Wednesday here with a very simple question. That is, how are the Houston Texans gonna do this season? I think, well, full disclosure, I am from Detroit, but I live in the Houston area, and I have maybe a homerish pick when it comes to the Super Bowl being the Lions versus the Texans, with the Lions finally winning their championship, removing the curse of Bobby Lane. So that's the TLDR of the series. The TLDR of this team, I'm going 12-5. Now, earlier when the schedule came out, I think I gave this team 13 wins. I'm head over heels over this defense. There's a lot of good defenses in this league, and the defenses I am like most looking at, and shout out to Vigilante, he's the one pointing this out, right? Some version of this I'm adding to it too, but basically, hey, the offenses are too good. Pretty much every team has a great receiver and at least a solid running back. A lot of teams, like the Lions, have two, like the Chargers to some extent with Najee and Hampton, even though he's a rookie. Even the Texans to some extent, signing Nick Chubb, still having Joe Mixon, who may or may not have injuries. We're seeing just offenses are going to be good. But if you can get takeaways, if you can take the ball away from the opposing team, you can do something impressive. And this team is set up to get a lot of takeaways. Now, last year, they were 5th, so they were already high in takeaways. I feel like they're going to be maybe number 1. There's a lot of teams competing with them. When you got Danielle Hunter, you got Will Anderson, and then you have that secondary, it's like it's designed with Stingley, with Kamari Lassiter. It's like you're going to throw picks. You're supposed to throw picks. How do you not throw 2 picks a game to this team? Look what they did to Justin Herbert. And I know Justin Herbert's not everybody's cup of tea. I couldn't tell you if he's overrated or underrated because he gets as much hate as he gets praise. But he did only throw 3 picks during the regular season. And, you know, he throws the ball down the field, especially to Ladd McConkey. And he was able to get through the whole regular season throwing 3 picks. He threw 4 in the playoff game. This team makes a fool out of Josh Allen pretty much every time they see him. This team is good, man. This team is good. This defense is good. And I think about the fact that, man, the fucking Bears in 06 went to, was it Rex Grossman? It's their quarterback. The fucking Ravens in 2001 with fucking Trent Dilfer as your quarterback. And this team has maybe a top 10 offense potentially. Now, I get it. There's a lot to worry about with this offense. Some people say, I am not one of them, by the way, that CJ Stroud had a down year last year. Some people say, I might be one of them, that this offensive line is still not good enough. They certainly weren't good enough last year, and they traded away their on paper best lineman in Laramie Tunsil. Now, being in Houston, there's a lot of rumors about how Laramie Tunsil affected that room. Now, I also know, hey, even if a guy is not the best leader, which I don't know how much of a leader a player should be, not everyone's going to take on that role. I'm, as a worker, you know, I do train people if I have to, but I'm not good at it and I don't prefer it. So, with all that said, not everybody is good at helping out everybody else. You have to be a professional. So one person making something toxic doesn't mean you can't still perform to the best of your ability. I understand all these things, and I get all these things. And I don't know that anything happened. Anytime you talk about it, it's like, oh no, nothing happened. But those rumors are out there that Laramie Tunsil and that locker room maybe had some issues. I don't know if that was true or not. I'm not reporting this to shit on Laramie Tunsil. I think he'll do well with Washington. I think he's what they need. But I don't think it's the end of the world for this offensive line just because they traded away that talent. Now, they got a lot of lesser talented players, you might argue, to try to revamp this offensive line. But going back to what I said in the previous video, and I'll say in all these videos, offensive line is going to be a concern for most teams because there's only so many people who can really do it at a high level, right? And this team is no different. I think a lot of their offensive line woes were not helped by Bobby Slowick, who was the offensive coordinator last year. And I remember speaking of being a Lions fan, at the Lions versus the Texans game live. And man, did they run a lot of balls directly into our defensive tackle. It's like, man, and they didn't really challenge us downfield where they had a little success early in the game. I don't know what happened. The offensive play calling let them down as much as anything. But a lot of that blame went to CJ. CJ's had a sophomore slump. He did throw less touchdowns and I think as many, if not more, picks. I can't remember exactly. But he also did not have the best offensive line for everyone's talking about Larry Tunsil. Last year, they were objectively a bad offensive line. And as a result, CJ dealt with as much pressure as Patrick Mahomes did in the Super Bowl pretty much every game. And I mean statistically. That's not a exaggeration. It was about 38% pressure rate, something like that. That's what CJ was facing. And that's what Patrick Mahomes faced, and he couldn't handle it. So CJ Stroud did not have a down year. He had a tough year, and he was still able to get his team to the playoffs, make plays in the playoff game win. There was a great play against the Chargers late in, I want to say, the second quarter, and they're way back there in their own territory, and CJ makes a play with his feet in the backfield and is able to make a crazy throw cross body that extends the drive, and they go on to score. And they just needed that play too, and they go on to score, and then that defense starts going, and then it's off to the races. They looked pretty good against Kansas City in that loss. If the referees were a different way, maybe they get a win there. There's a lot to look at with this team where you say, oh man, they have a chance to be elite. I already talked about this defense. This offense with CJ, I think, is going to be improved. They have a new coordinator. First year coordinator could go either way. I get that. I believe in Kelly. Maybe that's Homer stuff. Maybe this is not a 12-win team. Maybe they're a 10-win team. I think they'll still win this division. I think they'll win at least 11 games. I could see them winning even 13. It's not an easy schedule, but with this defense and what this offense is going to be, they signed Nick Chubb. That's the splashy signing. Yeah, Nick Chubb isn't quite what he used to be, but he is 2 years removed from his injuries, or his major injuries, I should say. And whether or not Joe Mixon is healthy, and that's something to be worried about, I get it. But if they are both healthy, they don't have to do as much. You know what I mean? We're not asking Nick Chubb to, put up 1,500 yards and 350 carries. No. Man, if you can give us 500 to 600 yards on like 150 carries, that'll be great. You know what I'm saying? Same with Mixon. If you can give us, maybe a little more, you think of him as more of the RB1. So you can give us 900 yards on 175 to 200 some odd carries. If you hit the 1,000 mark, great. That'll be great. You know what I mean? Neither one of you have to get 1,000. You can both get solid numbers off the carries we give you. You still have Dameon Pierce for whatever you think of him. He's had some solid years in the past, or at least as a return guy. Then you drafted a rookie in Woody Marks, who I think can do a lot more than what some other guys and gals think in the Houston Texans sphere, because I do watch other people's channels, and I think Woody Marks, man, he looked pretty good at USC. He could be a steal. I know a lot of people just think of him as a third down passing back. I think he has more than that. So there's a lot of carries you can get out of this backfield to help with that offensive line. And then going back to the rookies, you have these two receivers, both out of Iowa State, Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins. One 6'4", 215, another perfect slot guy, another guy you brought in, Christian Kirk, had some up and down years, pause. Last year was a little injury prone. I think he's broken a collarbone, so that's a serious injury. Hopefully he's back from that. But you got him there, so you would think you're going to run a lot of spread, at least 3 or 4 receiver set, because Nico Collins is still there as your number one receiver. At some point before his injury issues last year, he was leading the league in yardage. He's a great receiver, so you think you're going to get at least some 4 wide sets. Maybe Dalton Schultz will be involved. I know he may be a downgrade or not the greatest tight end, or at least his last year wasn't that good. I mean, you're still going to probably spread the team out. Pause. Jesus. How much football terminology do I need to pause? Holy smokes. You're still going to probably run some spread offense. That's what I'm trying to say. At least some. And that could be a gift or a curse with a pass rush, but at least your quarterback gets to see the rush a lot better in those situations. So with the running game, with the screen game, you can alleviate. You got a scheme for the rush. This idea that your offensive line is just going to talent their way through, if you're lucky, they can. There's only so many good offensive linemen. That's just the reality. A lot of teams are struggling with offensive line. A lot of teams are hoping to have improved their offensive line, and maybe they have, maybe they haven't. I don't know. And that's one of my biggest things. I do worry about this offensive line, but then I go back, like I said in one of these takes, because I have to use multiple takes. The 2000 Ravens had Trent Dilfer, right? This team has a much better offense than any other elite defense that doesn't have an offense. I mean, look at the Pittsburgh Steelers now. They get to the playoffs. We'll get there when we get there, as I keep saying. And everyone jokes, oh, they're 10-7 or 9-8 again, 9-8 again. Yeah, but, I mean, they're basically one-dimensional. So a one-dimensional team can get you 9 or 10 wins. This team is multi-dimensional. This is not a one-dimensional team. It's the bare minimum. They have a offensive line that's a challenge they got to play around. But the Vikings were able to do well last year with a bad offensive line. Hell, we know that the aforementioned Kansas City Chiefs, I think I mentioned them. Maybe I didn't by name because fuck the Chiefs. They've gone to the Super Bowl without the best offensive line. Same with the Bengals. Sometimes you can work around it. And there's enough talent on this team to work around it. If worst case scenario, the offensive line is just that bad. They can scheme around it. They can work around it. And I honestly think they won't be elite, but they'll be an NFL, at least a modern NFL offensive line. They'll be in the 20s, but I expect them to be maybe just outside the bottom third, maybe in that bottom of the second tier type offensive line. That's what I think, because there's going to be a lot of competition. There is at least depth at each position. So worst case scenario, can get a lot of reps to a lot of people to kind of help that offensive line out. There's a lot of things they can do between scheme and how you manage personnel to help this offensive line do a lot better. They're going to be a better running team just off the running talent alone and just the amount of carries they have to give out. And I think they're going to be a pretty good team. I think they're a pretty complete team. I see them going to the Super Bowl. And there's a lot, I meant to talk about just the history of the Houston Texans and linking it up to the Houston Oilers. And, I will before we get done. Let me do it right now. Houston does have a story, right? Every franchise has a story. And you got to go back to the Love Your Blue Oilers, as ridiculous as it is that the Tennessee Titans own that franchise. So if you want to buy a Warren Moon jersey, even though I think there is some revenue sharing, the money majority goes to the Titans, your rivals, instead of you. It doesn't matter. The Love Your Blue Houston Oilers in the 70s had good teams, went to the AFC title game, couldn't get it done. Then you have the teams in the late 80s and 90s with Warren Moon. Couldn't get it done. Had that, worst comeback ever against the Bills back in the day. I think it was the early 90s. Can't get it done. Obviously moved. Then you finally get the Texans in. You have the Matt Schaub era. Really can't get it done. The Arian Foster era that leaked into the J.J. Watt era. Good teams, winning the division multiple times, but cannot get to the Super Bowl. I feel like this is the year it finally happens. It happens a little early. I mean, you could argue they're not scheduled to be contenders until, the year after. But I think this is the year they break through. I think the AFC is going to have a lot of change, right? The past few years, hell, you can even include into the Deshaun Watson era if you're too tense and need a massage. But the AFC has pretty much been the Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens, and then Texas may be one of the teams, Bengals may be one of the teams. We're going to see a few new teams, especially out west and just some other places, really make some noise in this league, and especially in the AFC. And I think in all that ruckus, there's going to be a lot of ruckus. the Houston Texans will emerge. I don't think they'll have the best record in the AFC. 12-5 again is what I think, but I think they will win the division, and I think they will ultimately make it to the Super Bowl. But what say you? If you like the video, please like the video. If you're so obliged to share and subscribe, please do that. And even if you do none of these things, thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. Good night. God bless. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.